Hello?
Hey,
Hey.
I have your food upstairs. I smelled you came in, right? You're downstairs?
Yeah, I'm downstairs. Did somebody throw away my fucking... I had like 3 cans of White Claw in here. Did somebody throw them in the garbage?
No, I didn't.
It was in the fridge, like, for a week. No?
I didn't taste.
Okay. I'm just gonna go ahead and record, Ida.
You're not gonna eat?
Nah.
What are you gonna do?
I'm gonna eat later.
Okay.
People make fun of people that talk about the numbers. I like to talk about the numbers. I don't think it's the end all be all. I don't think that it has anything to do with the product that's being put out on TV. But I think if we're going to go back and forth all fucking day anyways about who's the bigger star, who deserves the bigger split, if that's what we're gonna do, then you got to know these things, right? At the end of the day, we're always arguing about purse splits and fucking, pay-per-view percentages and all types of shit. And ratings. So I like to talk about the ratings. I think it's one of the most interesting aspects of the fucking goddamn thing. PBC on Fox did 770,000. They averaged 18 to 49 demographic yesterday. These are the fast nationals, right? So when these numbers, when all the numbers come in, it'll obviously jump up as it did last week. Last week was 644,000. Average demo 18 to 49, and the first event back, which remember was James Delorme, did 773,000. Right. So for brevity's sake, the first event 770,000, and this event did, exactly the same, 770,000. Now, this is one of your, this is just sheer fucking laziness. I have no idea what the science is behind the shit. I just know the numbers come in. I could probably find out, maybe how you might be able to gauge the uptick. But I'm just going to say, assuming they do the same shit. The same amount of people fucking, the same number of people they pull in when they tally up the rest of the numbers, when they crunch the fucking numbers, right? If it's the same deal, they do similar numbers, 950,000 average, which is better than Porter Formella. Now, I thought, looking at the schedule, I hadn't taken into account the NBA thing. I hadn't taken into account the UFC thing. Just off top, looking at the schedule, I would have imagined that Sean would have done the best numbers on that Fox PBC rollout. Doesn't look like it, and it's not. I mean, I would imagine that boxing and NBA probably share more of a demographic than, say, boxing and baseball, which is what they would be up against now, right? Like playoff baseball or something like that. So, you take that into consideration, and I guess you find something out on that one. I guess that's it's an interesting little tidbit, and we're in some interesting fucking times right now. Now, if you're a PBC fan, you see Lara Vendetti, you see the numbers, you got to be saying to yourself, you got to be a little bit happy about that, right? He's still pulling in like 950K. I think he did like 1.4 million, which was, huge. And again, these are averages. 1.4 million with, was it Ramon or Raul Alvarez? I don't know. But yeah, 1.4 million, somewhere in that range, right? So it's a bit of a drop off, but it's the same drop off that we're kind of seeing across the board. We're seeing 40%, 30% in the NBA. We're seeing I haven't ran the numbers for the UFC, but there's certainly a dip, and I think as of late it's starting to, early on it looked like they were holding their average, and I think it's starting to dip more. I'll crunch the numbers and I'll show you the percentage right up over here. We'll do a little research on the goddamn show. But But yeah, so it's not only it's not only something that's happening over at PBC. I think PBC is doing a better job of maintaining what they have, but nonetheless, assuming that something big doesn't get put on the schedule, and I mean really, really fucking big, because you remember, you got to be able to move the entire average up to 1.4 million to match what they've been doing since the merger, right? And if they're like right now, I mean, if you consider Sean Porter's fight, they're probably going to end up floating somewhere around like 800,000 or something like that. You've got to get way, way up there. You need like an Andy Ruiz heavyweight fight and like another banger. So, and again, look, there's some time. We've got some time. Things can change. Things are happening. They're moving at a rapid pace. Come December, come November, come December, you could mess around and have like 2 really, really big fights on Fox. I don't know that's, again, I don't know what's going to happen, right? But I see that rollout. I know the names that are missing. And you would have wanted to see some of those guys on that schedule. And certainly as opponents for Lara, considering how much of 154 the PBC owns, we could have probably done better than Greg Vendetti. I don't completely blame Lara. Lara picked up $500K. I think Lara operates. I'm doing like a Tim Bradley. My mama said. I think Lara operates different from the way some other fighters operate. And there are some guys, I can probably say like a guy like Bernard Hopkins was this kind of guy. But I think Lara's the kind of fighter to where if you allow yourself to become complacent with taking a loss, Lara will not press the issue. Lara's got no problem taking the dub and scooping up the $500K and going back home. A guy like Tank will say, look, man, if they don't belong in there with you, get them out of there quick. Lara operates under a different set of rules. There's no reason to risk it. There's no reason to go for it. This guy is not, mentally, this guy is kind of given up at this point. He's only going to put up so much of a fight. And listen, Greg Vendetti put a good effort in. I don't think it was for lack of trying. I just think that Lara, even at 36, even at his advanced stage, is still slick, and he's still really good. And if you're Greg Vendetti, they ain't shit you're going to be able to do. But even a fighter of a higher caliber, if they're in there with Lara and they're not bringing a fight to him, Lara will just beat you on points and go home and take whatever's offered. He's one of those guys, right? But if you put him in with a guy like Angulo, you put him in with a guy like Hurd, you put him in with Castagna. We saw Angulo yesterday, which, by the way, I think is probably time now, right? It's probably time now for El Perro to, fucking retire down to the old farm. The real farm, though. Not where my mom said Fluffy went to. Fluffy. It was a Bichon Frise. God damn. R.I.P., bro. So, yeah. But vintage Angulo. When you had Lara in there with him, one of the toughest dudes. I think that was like fight of the year. If not, it fucking should have been. I don't remember. Man, that was a poppin'. That was like 2012, 2013. I don't know. That version of Angulo against Lara brought a fight to Lara. Lara will fucking fight if you make it to where he has to stand and fight with you. He's going to. You know what I mean? He's not a guy that's going to like constantly try to tie you up. He'll throw hands, right? We've seen it with Hurd. We've seen it with Castagna. We've seen Lara get into these kinds of fights. Again, if you're just going to give him the dub, he's going to take it. You're going to take the money too. So, you want to see Lara get in there with somebody, I think, of a higher stature. And again, considering PBC's roster, you can probably make that happen. But, good win for Lara. You move on from there. I think Angulo, it's time to wrap it up. And as far as PBC goes, let's see what's happening. Let's see what's happening. I don't know what's next up on the schedule. Let's look at the PBC schedule. Let's see what they have coming up next. Let's see what's going on. What did we like yesterday about Top Rank? I like that Top Rank card. Elvis Rodriguez, potential future superstar, is what I'm saying. we're spending time looking for the next Puerto Rican superstar. We've been trying to do this for quite some time. I don't know what happened with Danny Garcia. He's fighting on a pay-per-view. Danny Garcia is one of the more famous boxers in the world. Danny Garcia gets paid. Danny Garcia is Puerto Rican. I don't know why it didn't stick in the way that we wanted it to stick, and I think that maybe that's a complicated issue. There's like some New Yorican American thing going on there. But the times have changed too, and the demographics have changed, and what we consider to be Puerto Rican. Now we're on to second and third generation, and you know we're still down to pay. We're still down to pay, and we're still down to support, right? So you have the Puerto Rican fan base. It's worth looking for it, but we don't spend. We're not trying to target the Dominican fan base. There's not much of a boxing culture in terms of as far as Dominican people are concerned, but Dominicans are proud people. They represent, you know what I mean? Like, you can build this culture. We've seen it happen with Pacquiao. That didn't exist 20 years ago. There was no fervent Filipino fan base that was just like, oh, we got to watch, you know. It was not like that. And Pacquiao changed the culture. Now there's a huge boxing culture. Now I'm sure there's people going out there and specifically seeking out talent from that country. And that wasn't happening, at least not to the extent that it's happening now as a result of one person. One fucking person. Javier Fortuna, I think, was a guy that maybe we thought could have made that happen, and it hasn't, you know, at the very least, it hasn't panned out yet in that way. Could be Elvis, though. And speaking of Washington Heights, you got to get him out here to New York, right? You got something going with Berlanga. You got something going with Elvis. I think it's, you know, I think it's long overdue. I think it's long overdue to start getting the Dominican people involved. You'd have to rearrange things in the garden, probably. You'd have to make sure you have hookah there so that people can smoke and stuff like that. But don't worry, we will figure it all out. Elvis Rodriguez, though, 9-0, 9 knockouts. Kid's killing it. I like the way, from a technical standpoint too. I like what he does, man. You know, he fights out of the high guard. First of all, he's a southpaw. Gotta love a southpaw. But he fights out of the high guard, wide stance, right? But from a defensive standpoint, you don't ever really see him overreact to punches, which you know, for me is the sign of somebody that's seasoned. That's the sign of somebody that's calm. It's a professional approach, I think. To fighting. You know, you've got fighters that when they come from the amateurs, somebody throws a punch at them or somebody feints at them, and the reaction to it is, you know, it brings them way out of range to where they wouldn't be able to fire back. You see the sequence that led to the knockout. You know, and Rodriguez's opponent throws a punch. Rodriguez, instead of pulling all the way back or coming off to the side or taking a complete step back and then starting off with another combination, you see Rodriguez take one little tiny step back, keep the fighter in front of him, fire off a jab, a straight right hand down the pipe, and gets him out of there. I mean, completely fucking annihilates him with one punch, or I guess two punches, and you know, the jab. By the way, let's not forget the fact that he had already dropped him with a jab, right? So there's obviously power in that jab. He takes that little half step back, lands the jab. You know, again, Elvis has got pop. It blinds the guy for a second, and once he lands the other punch, it's lights out. So I was really, really impressed by what Elvis was able to do, and you know, I want to see more, man. I'd like to see more. You got to get that. I'm telling you, you got to get listen to what the fuck. We had the Darkhorse act before. If you didn't see the video, bam, watch that video. But I laid it all out for Top Rank. I said, listen, you got to go. You gotta get Inoue involved. They dropped a little hint yesterday about Inoue. You gotta bring Berlanga out. I'm adding in this Elvis Rodriguez. Inoue, Berlanga, Beterbiev, Shakur. Let's add in Rodriguez. Let's start pushing this fucking kid, because I think, again, you know, it's untapped. All right, and the main event for Top Rank was Ramirez Postol. I thought Postol won. I scored it 8-4. Postol last night. I scored it 8-4 today. Same thing. That's what I came up with. But again, I mean, the rounds that I was unsure of, and there was some rounds like that. Was it the second round? I think the second round was a little bit hard for me to score. There was a few little rounds in there. I don't have the paper in front of me, but a few rounds there to where I could see it going Ramirez's way. I could see a 1-point win for Ramirez. I can't see how the judges could have scored 3 of the last 4 rounds to Ramirez. I don't know if all 3 judges did that, but certainly 2. There was 2 of the 3 that scored 3 of the last 4 rounds to Ramirez. It's just not what happened in the fight, right? And if you look at the 10th round, I think there was 2 judges that scored the 10th round, not for Postol, which was a clear Postol round. There's no ways around that. That was a clear round for him. The fact that they don't score him, they don't give him credit for that round, and you take like I don't know, the 3rd round, which was like a solid round for Postol, and you say, okay, well, if they did score the 3rd for him, and they didn't score the 10th for him, then are we arbitrarily just changing what it is that we're looking for when we're scoring a fight? Right? Because that's what I see. When I look at the scorecard, it's like, okay, so then that doesn't make any fucking sense. He did a better job of what you gave him credit for in the 3rd round than he did in the 10th, if that makes any sense at all. So I wasn't completely thrilled with the scorecards. This is boxing, but this is box, as Gennady would say. My box, Mex. So I wasn't like overly thrilled, but it is what it is, man. I thought Postol did a great fucking job, man. I thought that the jab that he was working to the body was stopping Ramirez in his tracks. Every single time Ramirez would try to get something going, Ramirez is coming in, he's feinting off to the side. Postol standing straight up, European style, and keeping Ramirez in front of him. Right? So Postol is standing straight up and jumping in and out. Ramirez is moving off to the side. And when he feints off this way or feints off this way to give the illusion that he's going to throw a body shot. But Postol, seeing how he's so upright, he's so much more taller, so much more rangy, and he's moving in and out, he can see exactly where Ramirez is, and whether it's going to be a body shot or not, he can be out of the way because he's keeping the fight in front of him. Ramirez did not know how to work his way on the inside because every time he took a step in, Postol would either stick a jab right in his gut, stick a jab right in his face, and it stopped him from being able to advance over and throughout the course of the night. Now, that's not to say that Ramirez did not get on the inside at all. In the rounds that he was able to do that, he was able to score and he was able to win. But again, I think Postol did more. I think he did more of the scoring. I think he did more of the landing. I think that the work that he was putting in was much more effective. It just looked better. There was more rounds to where I felt like Postol was the guy that I wanted to be walking back into my corner. I score it that way. That's typically, if I'm looking at a boxing match and that's what it looks like and you're doing the things that Postol is doing, I'm probably going to reward you the round. Other people like other things. Could go either way, but I was not, it should not have been that wide, 116 and 112 on 2 cards. And I can't understand what went down in the 10th round, but it's a dope fucking fight. It's a dope fight. The WBC was doing something that I thought was cool. And I was at a symposium a few months ago at the Wilder Ortiz 2 fight, and Mauricio Suleiman unveiled this whole thing he's doing with the judging and the scoring, and they're having WBC judges off-site score cards, and it's worth looking into. It's up on, maybe I'll post it to my channel. I got the footage. I don't know. It's up on Fight Hype too. To where they kind of explain how this works. They went through history. I mean, files upon files of fight records, and they've got them all uploaded into a database to where you can actually go in and look at how judges scored certain fights, and you can see if there's a trend, and they're looking into it to see if there's a trend, and based on these inconsistencies, I would say, between the judges that are scoring from home and the judges that are scoring officially for the match, based on those inconsistencies, they will figure out whether or not they need to hand out some sort of punishment, suspension, training, so on and so forth. I don't know what the angle is with Mauricio. Let's be for real. You know what I mean? Like the WBC, Mauricio, it's got a whole history in and of itself. And Mauricio is doing You know, he's got his whole program. He's doing a lot of things. I don't know if there's an angle or not. What I will say is I'm all for transparency. Anything that leads me to be able to see more and look more into boxing is a good thing. I think it's a good idea. You know, I haven't thought of what the angle could possibly be or how this could be a fucking, you know what I mean? But it just seems like whenever Mauricio is involved in anything, people are looking for an angle. And they might not necessarily be wrong, right? So, got off topic. People seem to think Taylor beats Ramirez up. People seem to think he's got no shot now. I gotta check. We've got to do an extensive film study on this to kind of figure this out. But based on what I saw last night, and I remember Taylor and Regis and the fight that they had, is what it is, right? Fuck, man, I might have gotten it all. I think that's it. Bye.